So in this video, I'll be showing you guys how to set up version control. I'll just be going over how to set it up for Godot, but you don't need to worry about using Godot for this specific case, because since we're just working with files, this will work with any project scenario that you might have. So if you know nothing about version control, it's essentially just saving different versions of your project, and you're easily able to revert back to previous versions, as well as branch out into new features for editing specific aspects of your project without affecting others. Now, if you're working in a team setting with multiple other people, it's pretty much essential to have any sort of version control system, just because it would be very hard to work on a collaborative project without such a thing. But even if you're working solo, it's very nice to have your entire project saved in a organized history on an external website like GitHub or GitLab, so that you can easily revert back to previous versions and make sure that you save all of your progress in case your computer ever crashes or any of your files get corrupt. Alright, so first thing we need to do is go to this website. I left a link in the description of the video, but it's just gitforwindows.org. So just click this download button. You'll be able to save the executable anywhere, and this will install Git once you run it. Now, I already have Git installed, so I'm just going to skip this step, but basically just go through all the defaults should be fine. It should ask you which text editor you would like to link to Git, and you can select your preferred one in there. But once that's installed, we just need to initialize a few user settings for your local machine. So what you need to do next is go into your File Explorer, and once you've installed Git, if you right-click, you'll see this extra option here, and it'll say Git bash here. Now for this tutorial, I'm going to be only using the Git command line, but you can do most of these steps with the Git GUI as well. So make sure to open this up, and you'll open up this command line here. We're going to expand this a bit. And all we need to do is run two separate commands for your initial setup. So the first one will be git config -- global, and then we're going to say user.name, and this is where you'll enter your name that you want to link to your computer. So you're going to put it in quotes here, and for me it would be Hubel. If you want to do your first and last name, you can just stick that in there, but do note that if you contribute to any public repositories online, everybody will be able to see your real name here, so just keep that in mind. And then once it's entered, you can just click enter, and this will set up your username. Now, I've already done this, so I'm just going to delete this quick, and we're going to go on to the next command, which is git config -- global again. This time we're going to go to user.email. Now, as you can see, I've placed in my professional email account, but once again, if you contribute to any public repositories online, everybody will be able to see this email account as well, which is linked to your machine. So keep that in mind as well, in case you want to use your burner email account or anything like that. Now, I've already done this step as well, so I'm just going to delete this, but once you have that filled out, just click enter, and it will set up your email. So once you have those two values set, you now need to set up an SSH key. So this will essentially be your public data key, which is basically required when pushing or pulling from any online repositories, so other people can't impersonate you online. So we'll just generate this quick, and then later on in the video, we'll be linking it to your GitHub account so that you can actually push to your online repository. So basically the command you need to run is ssh -keygen, and after that we're going to do -o. Now once you click enter, this will generate an SSH key. Dialog options, I guess. The first will ask where you want to save the SSH key. Just leave that as default because it'll put it in the correct place, and then it'll ask you twice for a passphrase. If you want to enter a password every time you push or pull from a repository just to verify that it is you using the SSH key, then you can type in your password there. If you want to leave it empty, which is what I've done, you can just click enter twice and ignore those two options. And once you finish the command, it will generate two SSH keys in a folder on your local machine. So I've already done that, but after you have generated them, you can verify that they're here. And we're just going to do that by going to this PC, and then it's on my local disk, under users, and then my username, and then in .ssh, and you should have two different files here. Now the first one is ID_RSA, and the second one is the same, but it's a .pub file, and this stands for public. But with that being said, we're now ready to set up our local repository. So I'm going to open up Godot, and I'm just going to make a new project here, and just make sure that we have our version control metadata set to Git, and this will basically automatically initialize a couple files that we'll need for our repository to work correctly. And we just have our basic scene here. We actually don't really need to edit anything in here yet. We can just initialize the Git repository straight away. So we can go ahead and navigate to the folder where we are storing this project in our file explorer. Okay, and then once we're inside of our project folder, you're going to notice that we have a git ignore file. So if we open up this file, it'll show that we have .godot/, and this will basically tell Git to ignore any files or changes which are inside of our .godot folder, which is right here. And if you wanted to add any more exceptions, we could create a new folder, call it project files. If you wanted to save any like asprite files or anything inside of here, then all we need to do is say project files / and Git would ignore this entire folder as well. So we'll save this, close out of that, and once we have everything set up, all we need to do is right click and select git bash here. Now this will open our command line inside of this directory, but we don't yet have a Git repository set up. So we need to write git init, and this will initialize a Git repository in this directory. And then after that, we need to commit our first version of the project. So we can do that by writing git add-a. And once we click enter, this will add all of our files to our next commit. If you're wondering which files it's added, you can simply write git status at any time, and this will return our status. So it says we're on the branch master, no commits yet, but we do have all of these files right here, staged, ready to commit. Now, since this entire process works in a few different parts, you'd actually have to change the files, which we've already done. We've created the files. Then you have to stage them, which means they're ready to commit. And then part 3 is you actually have to commit the files. They aren't actually committed yet. So we can see they're all staged here. We just need to write one more command to actually commit them to our version. And that command is git commit -m. And the -m just allows us to add a message to our commit from the command line. So this is really helpful if you don't want to do it in an external program, but we can just type initial commit here inside of these single quotes. And once we click enter, it should commit all of our changes, which is the first commit of our history. Now, if we type git status again, you'll see that we are on the branch master and there's nothing to commit. Our working tree is clean. So that's good. We are completely based on our last commit. And if we type git log, we can see that the last commit we did was initial commit here, and it'll give us all the information about who committed it, when they committed it, and which branch, obviously. All right, so now let's say we wanted to add some files to our project. So we go into here, we're going to create a world scene. All right, and then let's say we have a script on this world, and we're going to make sure we save this inside of here. Now, if we wanted to add these changes to our repository, all we need to do is go back into our git bash, and we're just going to type git status, and this will just visualize. We can see that we have changes not staged for commits. We modified the project.godot file, and then we have untracked files, which is the world GD and the world scene. So if we write git add -A again, and as you can see, I accidentally typed a lowercase a here. Basically, this isn't a command. It only works if it's capital A. Otherwise, you can just write --all, and it'll do the same thing. But we're just going to click enter, and this will add all of our files. As you can see, if we type git status again, it'll say that all of the files we've changed are now added to our current staged changes. And all we need to do again is type git commit -m and enter our message, which will be added world. And it'll say that we committed this. If we type git status again, it'll say there's nothing to commit. And if we type git log, it'll show that's our latest commit right here, is added world. Okay, so this is all working great. Next up, we're going to just go over how to add this to an online repository so that you have an online copy of this linked to your GitLab or GitHub account. So to do that, we need to go to GitHub. If you haven't used GitHub before, you'll need to create an account. And then once you have your account created, we need to link your SSH key. So that's the file we created earlier. You're just going to go into the top right to your profile, and we're going to go to settings, go to SSH and GPG keys. And at the top, we're going to see the SSH key area. So we need to click on new SSH key, and this will open a little dialog box here. We're going to type in the title to our SSH key, which you can normally identify as the computer you're working on. You can leave this as authentication key, and then this is where you'll paste your file. So we need to go back into that folder where your SSH key is and open the public file. Click Control A and Control C to copy all of this. And then back on GitHub, we're going to paste this into the box here. And then you'd click Add SSH key. Now I already have this one added obviously right here, so I'm not going to do it again, but you just want to make sure that that all gets initialized so you can push to your online repository. And then once you have that set up, just go to your dashboard on the home page, and right here where it says start a new repository, we're just going to make a new repository here. I'm going to call this version control example. I'm going to make this private, and we're going to click on create new repository. It will walk you through how to set this up if you are doing this by yourself. But for now, all we need to worry about is this one box here, which gives us the HTTPS URL right here. So we're going to basically copy this entire thing with the button on the right-hand side, and then go back into our git bash. And we just need to add this as our origin. So all we need to do is write git remote add origin. And then we need to paste in our URL, which will be shift insert inside of the command line, and then just click enter, and it will add that URL as our origin point. And then last thing we need to do is actually push our current build onto this remote repository. So we can write git push -u origin main. Now I'll go over the details of this command very briefly here. So the -u in this command basically says that we will set the upstream to this location. And this will basically make it so that the master branch that we're on right here, we won't require a location to push it to every single time we push our changes. But instead, in the future, when we're pushing from this branch, we can just type git push, and it'll automatically push to the correct location. Okay, and then I did go to click enter here, and it said we failed to push some references to the location. And this is because main doesn't match any branches that we have. So I accidentally put that in. We are on the branch master, so we don't have a main branch here. So we're gonna just type that same thing again, git push -u origin and then master. And now it should all work correctly. You'll see all the status here, and then it'll say branch master set up to track origin master. And then if we go back onto GitHub and just refresh the page, you can see that all of our local files, which we've defined inside of here, are now online. So it's very convenient because this repository will basically be able to track any of your local files so that you don't lose any work or versions. Now, there are a couple more things I wanted to mention for basics with Git, and the next one will be branching. So let's say we wanted to add a new feature to our game. We wanted to add a player, but it's really bad practice to work on the master branch, because if you encounter any bugs or you push stuff to the master branch while another developer is working on the master, and then they push and everything gets messed up because you will have conflicts and such when working with Git. It's really foolish to work on the master branch, so we always want to be working on a feature branch, and then when our changes are complete, then we can push that to the main branch, or the master branch in this case, and make sure we don't have any conflicts with the files. And it's a lot easier to manage in the future. It'll just save you a lot of headaches. But let's say we wanted to do that, right? So we're going to write this new command. This will be git branch, and then the name of the branch will be feature. And then we can check which branch we're currently on by typing git branch. It'll say we have the feature branch and the master branch, but we are currently on the master branch. So we want to type git checkout to feature, and this will switch us to the feature branch, as it said right here. And now we can start making changes inside of Godot. So we're going to add maybe a new character body 2D here, create this, all the basics. If we saved this, now we go back into Git, we type git status, and it'll say that we have modifications to our world scene. We're just going to type git add -- all, and finally git commit -m, and our message, which is added player to world. Now this will commit everything to our feature branch, which means that the changes that we've made right here are only on our feature. So if we switched to, let's say we did git checkout master, and we switched to our master branch, then we go back into Godot, it'll detect the changes because Git will automatically update all of our files to match the last commit of the branch that we're on. So we need to click reload, and you're going to see that our player disappears here. And this is because, once again, we're on the master branch. So the changes we just made in Godot are only on the feature branch. So if we wanted to merge those changes back into our master branch so that they're in the main build of the game, we need to go to the branch we want to merge onto, which is the master, and we're already on there. And then we just need to run git merge feature being the branch that we want to merge into the branch that we're on. And then once we click enter here, and then if we type git log here on the master branch, you can see that we now have this new commit, added player to world, and this is from our feature branch that we just changed. Now back in Godot, it'll ask us to reload again, and you can see that all of our changes migrated over to our master branch, which is now up to date with the latest build. And finally, we just need to run git push again. We don't need to specify the origin that we want to push this to, as we set the upstream for this branch to track our online repository. So just type git push and click enter, and everything should work correctly. Now back here on GitHub, if we refresh the page, you can see that our latest changes were added player to world right here, and all of our files are inside of our online repository. Now for the last subject I want to mention in this tutorial, it'll be how to clone an existing repository onto your local machine. So if you have different team members, or you want to clone this onto your laptop per se, all you have to do is go onto the repository online. We're going to copy the URL once again right here, and then back inside of our file explorer, let's say we have our team members folder, and they want to basically take this entire repository so that they can work on it as well. We just need to right click into the folder, click git bash here, and all we need to do is run git clone and then paste our URL here, and it will copy the entire online repository into our local machine. Now this also popped up for me. This might happen with you, but it just asks you to sign into GitHub. So I'm going to click sign in with browser, but once you're authorized, it'll clone the entire repository into your file manager. And inside of here, we have our entire Godot project folder, which if we open with Godot, will have all of the recent changes made to this repository. So that's really all the basics for setting up your Git repository. Like I said before, this will work with any type of project, so it's not limited to just Godot. But I figured this would be a good tutorial to make for any Godot users, since I know a lot of people still don't use version control, and it's extremely powerful, especially if you're the kind of person who does a lot of game jams. You want to keep a very clean work environment and save your progress. Now, Git is obviously an extremely complex program, despite how straightforward it seems, but I'm going to continue this series for using Git, and in the next video I should cover different things like handling merge conflicts, and also a few more tips and tricks for improving how you use Git. But that will do it for this video. If you want to continue, there should be another video in the playlist. Unless, of course, I haven't created it yet, then just stay tuned and I should have that finished as soon as possible. But thanks for watching the video, and if you learned something new or enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing, as it does help the channel out a lot. And also, if you're looking for a community of chill game developers, you can go down to the description and I'll have a link to our Discord server there. It is growing pretty fast, and it's really cool to have a community of people, and we're always trying to help everyone out in the server and promote people's work. So go ahead and check that out. But anyway, that'll do it for this video, so thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.